So this is something that's definitely a bit different. You see, usually each year I create one final large video talking about all of the incredible anime that came out over the past year. And I don't know if you guys have been sleeping under a rock, but my god, this year was probably one of the best years for anime since I've started this tradition. But if I actually took the time to talk about every single anime that came out this year that I would rate as incredible, I would need this video to be like a half-hour long. And well, I just don't have that kind of time anymore. So we're finally breaking away from tradition. Instead of talking about every incredible anime I've seen this year, we'll be talking about 11 anime that were truly incredible, but didn't quite get the amount of attention they deserved. Shows that, for lack of a better term, got buried by countless other incredible anime that really blew me away this year. So let's start by jumping into winter 2021. Now, saying Wonder Egg Priority got buried may be a bit of a stretch, as it was somewhat popular, but I never really got the chance to talk about this show despite it being one of my favorites of the year. The ending wasn't great, it was tragically plagued by technical difficulties and scheduling problems, but nonetheless, no one can deny just how truly beautiful this show is. The art is gorgeous, the fights are phenomenal, not to mention the story and how the whole show's premise is about subverting death from suicide. It's surprisingly deep and well thought out, despite occasionally being a little tone deaf. But I think the thing that sells this show to me the most is the sound design. I love how the victory bell after each episode is played further and further away and gets distorted by these empty hallways into something truly eerie. The way the show plays with sound and the themes of loneliness and tragedy, it knows how to get emotion out of you, and it does such a great job of drip feeding you story, but never giving you the whole truth until after things go south. There were a lot of isekais this year, and ironically enough, I found myself watching quite a few of them and always being somewhat satisfied. Maybe the genre has finally caught up, or maybe it's just because 2021 is the golden year for anime, but I've been reincarnated as a spider, so what? Was surprisingly entertaining. Well, half of it was anyways. I'm just gonna say it, fuck them kids. Kumo literally carries the show. Her plotline is fun, it's stupid, and most of all, she and her multiple personalities just make for some fun storytelling. On the other hand, all of the other kids are bland and boring as hell. Literally every episode, I found myself just sitting there tapping my fingers waiting to get back to Kumo. Look, this show isn't going to win Anime of the Year. The art is trash, the fight scenes are mediocre, and literally half of the show you'd probably be better off just skipping past it. But god damn it, Kumo is fun, and when she is on screen, she's frankly just a treat, and makes everything else worth it. Tamazaki Kun ended up being probably the biggest sleeper show of the winter season, and for a somewhat good reason. I think the only reason I picked up the show was because someone mentioned it to me and I wanted something else to watch. Its art style is bland, the title is mediocre, and the plot doesn't seem all that special. But if you actually give this show a chance, it's really good. Tamazaki is basically just a nerdy kid who was a loser and doesn't have any friends, but is Japan's best Smash player. He meets up with Japan's second best player to find out it's the popular girl from his class. And the whole show is basically her helping him learn to not be a social outcast. It's a surprisingly empowering and positive show. It talks about how to get better at small talk, making friends, taking fucking showers. It's sold as a romantic comedy, but there is some good messaging in here, and it's absolutely worth the watch if you're ever feeling a bit down. So let's move on to the spring season, probably the most loaded season of 2021, and that's saying something. So let's start off with the most loaded show, Vivi. This is one of those anime I originally avoided when it first came out, and frankly, I'm kind of glad because I got to binge this whole thing in a single sitting. Vivi is a phenomenal time travel story that is both gorgeous and tragic. They do time travel so well, and they have this question of, is AI a living thing or not? Is original creation something possible for an AI? And if so, Does that mean the end of humanity if that occurs? It's definitely a tragic anime in all the best ways, and I cannot recommend this show enough. And out of all the anime of the year, I'm actually giving this show my bronze medal. Basically, the third best anime of 2021 in my perspective. Because when it comes to story, art, and sound design, this show is truly on another playing field. I would love to spend more time talking about the wonders of Vivi, but it's hard to talk about this anime without spoiling too much. Just trust me, if you slept on this show, give it a watch. I find it very unlikely that you won't love this anime as much as I do. So, like I said, spring was loaded, and so a few small gems were easily overlooked. And I was very sad that I never actually got a chance to talk about Shadow House. Shadow House was one of those anime I would have never even looked at if it weren't for one of my friends recommending it, and it ended up being one of the most unique and beautifully stylized anime of the year. The show takes place in this Victorian-like house where ash spirits live with their puppet/human counterparts. The show is much more devious than it seems. It gives you nothing to go on, and you slowly learn more and more about the eccentricities of their lives in the Shadow House. There are a lot of specific manners and traditions, and it's a very unique show that is addicting to watch. And like I said, almost no one has seen this anime, so I highly recommend it if you are looking for a good mystery anime to keep you satisfied. Now, you guys all should know by now that I am shoujo trash, and I have to include at least one of those anime for my guilty pleasure, and of course, I had to choose The Saint's Magic Power is Omnipotent. Look, this show isn't for everyone. You have to have very specific tastes, but God, I do love indulging in guilty pleasures, and this show is just that. An overindulgence in hot guys pampering an exceedingly average girl who just happens to have powers similar to God. But that has nothing to do with it. No, seriously, the show is kind of bland and very predictable, but it's fun, and I do enjoy basking in pampering occasionally. And now time for the final show I'll be talking about for the spring season, Odd Taxi. Now, luckily for me, I was far from the only person absolutely blown away from Odd Taxi. If there was a sleeper show that got the most recognition for being truly amazing this year, it was Odd Taxi. Tons of other content creators talked about this anime, but even then, not a ton of people have actually taken the time to sit down and watch what is frankly a masterpiece. This anime is a slow burn mystery show that takes place after the disappearance and potential murder of a famous idol, and shit spirals so quickly. Not a single rock is left unturned, and not a single loose end remains untied when the show finishes airing. It's rare that I watch something and not have any sort of criticism about it, but Odd Taxi is nearly perfect. It's on the par of what I dream of creating someday, which is why this show took the gold medal from me for this year's best anime of 2021. It deserves so much more praise than you can comprehend, and from a filmmaker's perspective, it is nearly perfect in every way. Seriously, for the love of God, go watch this show. Everyone needs to see this anime at least once. Oh yeah, and before I forget, Mushoku Tensei is my silver medal, but I'm not putting it on this list since it's way too popular. So, summer 2021 finally came around, and let's just be honest with each other, the summer season was pretty weak, especially for a year like 2021. However, despite that, Moonlit Fantasy ended up being pretty easily passed over, which is a shame. Once again, it's another isekai, with the twist being that everybody in the new world is gorgeous and the protagonist is ugly and banished by the goddess as an outcast. Weirdly enough, the story is surprisingly good. He ends up becoming allies with the demons and trying to create a better world, and the show chooses to shine a light on the cruelty of humanity. It gets a little dark, and characters actually get killed off, which isn't something I would have expected from an anime like this. But yeah, this show doesn't pull punches when it clearly has the option to, and I think that's what really made the difference with this anime. It's surprisingly good, and each time you think it's going to pull something cheesy, it decides not to. If you're looking for a solid isekai, definitely go for Moonlight Fantasy. Finally, let's move on to fall 2021, starting with another isekai, banished from the hero's party. So I genuinely picked up this show because I like watching at least one trashy isekai a season to keep my standards in check, but ended up being very pleasantly surprised. This show has a very unique take on the blessing system. Basically, gaining a blessing more or less defines your life. Like, it physically changes your personality to match it better. And blessings like Hero end up being complete curses because this world's hero can't feel pain, doesn't need to sleep, eat, drink water, doesn't feel cold or hot. It's a living hell. Although the show doesn't follow her too closely, it mostly stays with Red, who is her older brother, who is the tutorial character. Basically, he gets kicked from the party and decides to leave for the countryside, changes his identity, settles down, and gets a wife. It's a relatively pleasant show that does actually explore its themes of does your blessing define you as a person? It's a really interesting take on isekai, and the story is deceivingly good. If you're a fan of isekai and want something a little bit different, you should definitely give this show a try. The next show we need to talk about is Ranking of Kings. When I was originally doing my video on what anime to watch for fall 2021, I saw this show and said, cannot wield a children's sword. I'm gonna call it. This could be good. I have a good feeling about this. And guess what? My feelings were right. This show is truly something special. Now, it's not finished yet. It's a 24 episode series, but God, this anime has this amazing strategy of making every character seem evil at first, but secretly you find out just how lovable they all are. Obviously, Bocchi and Kage are great, but man, they made healing into my favorite character in the entire show. Basically, King Boss dies and healing is the queen. Bocchi is literally a powerless child and actually isn't even healing's son. Her son is Daida, who is the younger, stronger, and smarter of the two. So you would think that she would be plotting to kill Bocchi because she's the stereotypical evil stepmom. Nope, she is loving, sweet, and noble. She cares so much about literally everyone in the show and is the glue that holds the entire kingdom together. Literally every character is written so well, and you guys need to take some time to watch this show. It's got this great mix of wholesomeness combined with betrayal and surprisingly good fight scenes. It's honestly one of the best anime of the year, maybe even my 4th place prize, but I don't know because obviously it's not done yet. But you guys definitely need to check this show out. And finally, the final show I will be talking about is The Vampire Dies in No Time. Ironically enough, despite 2021 being a fantastic year for anime, there were very few comedy shows that were actually decent. Maybe Last Dungeon, but this year really leaned heavy into drama. But luckily enough, The Vampire Dies in No Time really filled in that void, despite being at the tail end of this year. It's an episodic comedy about a vampire hunter and a vampire who team up to hunt vampires together. Except almost all the vampires they hunt are relentless perverts, or just plain failures at everything they do. The comedy in this show is golden. They do such a good job of balancing the two characters out with Dralik's overconfidence despite being so weak, and Ronaldo's countless complexes despite being an actual fighter. Oh yeah, and of course, John is just the emotional crux of the entire show. It's such a fun show to watch, and I have the confidence to recommend it to just about anyone. And those are the anime of 2021 that you probably missed. This year was truly fantastic for anime, and I do admit, it's a little weird for me to be making a end of the year video while not talking about Mushoku Tensei, My Hero Academia, or Slime. But there were so many other fantastic anime that deserve just a little bit more time in the limelight before the end of the year. So, what are you guys still doing here? Go watch those goddamned anime!